This is also another extraordinary story we didn't want to lose sight of. We had covered previously there's kind of a freak out going on in the Netanyahu government right now about possible arrest warrants being issued for Netanyahu, Yoav Gallant, and a few other individuals, and possibly Hamas leaders as well, coming from the International Criminal Court. So let's put this up on the screen. The ICC issued this rather extraordinary statement warning any entities against bullying and threatening them. Let me read you some of this. They say the Office of the Prosecutor is aware there's significant public interest in its investigation. It welcomes comments, communication of concerns, and engagement in its activities. But they go on to say, independence and impartiality cannot be undermined. And they are when individuals threaten to retaliate against the court or against court personnel, should the office in fulfillment of its mandate make decisions about investigations or cases falling within its jurisdiction. Such threats, even when not acted upon, may also constitute an offense against the administration of justice under Article 70 of the Rome Statute. That provision explicitly prohibits both retaliating against an official of the court on account of duties performed by that or another official, and impeding, intimidating, or corruptly influencing an official of the court for the purpose of forcing or persuading the official not to perform or to perform improperly his or her duties. They conclude, the office insists that all attempts to impede, intimidate, or improperly influence its officials cease immediately. So they put this out, and everyone was like, okay, what's going on? What is this about? Now, we had some guesses because there had already been some reports about, the Israelis using all the tools they had, about the US pressuring the ICC. But now we have these specific details of what this likely was in reference to. And this is really quite extraordinary. Let's put this up on the screen. This scoop came courtesy of Zateo, that's Mehdi Hassan's news outlet. He got a hold of a letter that was sent from a number of high-profile Republican senators, including Mitch McConnell, that directly threatened the ICC prosecutor and threatened their family members. This is really crazy. Let me read you a little bit of this. They say in a terse one-page letter obtained exclusively by Zateo and signed by 12 GOP senators, including Tom Cotton, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, Khan, that's the prosecutor, is informed that any attempt by the ICC to hold Netanyahu and his colleagues to account for their actions in Gaza will be interpreted not only as a threat to Israel's sovereignty, but to the sovereignty of the United States. Quote, target Israel and we will target you. Adding they will sanction your employees and associates and ban you and your families from the United States. The letter concludes, quote, you have been warned. So, direct threats being made against the ICC, their employees, their family members, direct threats made by these 12 Republican senators. They got a statement response from Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen, who said, quote, it's fine to express opposition to possible judicial action, but it is absolutely wrong to interfere in a judicial manner by threatening judicial officers, their family members, their employees with retribution. This thuggery is something befitting the mafia, not U.S. senators. So pretty wild, this situation.
I was not aware of something called the Hague Invasion Act, which authorizes the U.S. president to use all means necessary and appropriate to bring about the release not just of U.S. persons, but also allies who are imprisoned or detained by the ICC. Who wants to guess who signed that one into law? George W. Bush, 2002. Now, look, it's one thing if it's one thing if the ICC is attacking and going after U.S. service members for us to exert extraordinary influence to prevent that. It's another thing to do so on behalf of a foreign nation who is not even a treaty ally, who we have no obligation actually legally to defend at all. It's just a quote unquote but like, just so people understand, Israel has the same treaty designation or ally designation as Argentina. So, just so everybody understands that in terms of our actual obligations to the country. Now, as we can see here, though, very clearly, they are saying that this would constitute an attack on the U.S. itself, where further evidence of dual loyalty and of exactly how much these people are willing to, basically expend extraordinary U.S. effort and influence on behalf of the Israeli government. It's just crazy.
Well, I think it's in part, too, because there is some risk because the U.S. has been so involved in this assault on Gaza. So they're not crazy to see this as like, this could be a problem for us too, given what we've known about these war crimes, given the, overwhelming support in Congress and from the presidential level to ship these weapons in contravention of U.S. law, leave alone international law. So I don't think they're crazy to see this as like, this could be a problem for us too. And speaking of the Hague Invasion Act, they actually name check. It has some other sort of Orwellian name, like the Service Member Protection Act or something like that is the official name. The nickname for it is the Hague Invasion Act because it, as it indicates, authorizes military action in the event that, our service members were detained or there was any sort of, threat to quote unquote U.S. sovereignty. So it authorizes extraordinary measures. And they're saying that this could be invoked, the Hague Invasion Act could be invoked, even if there are just arrest warrants for Bibi Netanyahu, Yoav Gallant, et cetera. So this is wild. This is really wild. And I guess it also does speak to the fact that it's easy to dismiss UN resolutions and whatever. It's they don't have any, they don't have a police force. What are they going to do? They're not going to actually arrest Netanyahu or whatever. Clearly from the freak out from these individuals, the direct threats that are being issued in this letter and the freak out that's been reported on from the Israeli side, they clearly think it means something. They clearly feel like this is not a little nothing that they can just hand wave away.
I mean, I've said this before. I don't think anybody will get arrested or anything is going to happen. But international isolation is a problem. And that's really what they're more afraid of than anything, is they just want to be able to, what does anybody want? They will be able to land without having to even worry or negotiate or have the U.S. have to exert influence is ultimately what they want. Bibi also backing this, putting this up on the screen, please. Yesterday was actually Holocaust Remembrance Day in Israel, and Netanyahu, in his message, frankly, in a very insulting message to all of us, says, quote, Israel will defend itself even if it is forced to stand alone. Now, if this was a country that had not received more military aid than any other country literally in the world from the United States, it would be one thing. But this is a country that owes not only its foundation and its existence, but every military development post-1972 to the United States taxpayer. So the idea that they're forced to stand alone and it's just them against the world is bullshit. It's just insulting to us. And they to say that as if their isolation at this point is A, real, because it's not, if you look at the way that the West is supporting them, but B, to sell this idea that it's oppositional when in reality, they are the greatest benefactors of the U.S. superpower than maybe any other nation in the history of the world. So anyway, it just shows you that their foundational myth is we stand alone, we stand
We're
together.
The underdog.
Yeah, right, we're the underdog. It's come on, man. Not whenever we've been funding your ass for the last 35,
this country
40
wouldn't
years.
even exist without us.
No,
it's literally the case.
It's actually true.
The UN partition plan that was originally passed only came after we bullied and coerced and threatened a few countries to demand their vote. Okay, so it's just ridiculous, but it does speak to this sense of constant victim. We're the only legitimate victims. That's number one.
Key.
Everything that we do has to be seen in the context of the horrors of the Holocaust. And so since that horror was done to us, we can never be the ones perpetrating the horrors. No matter what we do, we get a free pass. That's number one. And number two, this self-conception, which, people like Christian Zionists like Joe Biden and others also buy into, this outdated notion of, which was never really accurate, of Israel as the underdog, as the David against the Goliath, which is a preposterous concept when you look at the power disparity between them and the Palestinians at this point. So, but he said specifically in this message with regard to the ICC, he said, which also speaks to that dual, victimhood and underdog situation, issuing arrest warrants for Israeli officials would leave an indelible stain on the edifice of international law and justice. He stressed the ICC was founded as a consequence of the Holocaust and should not attempt to undermine Israel's fundamental right to self-defense. So again, the idea is because of the Holocaust, we can do no wrong. This institution isn't about making sure that the law is applied equally no matter who does it, and making sure these horrors that were perpetrated against us, that nothing like it can happen to anyone in the world. No, no, no. This was set up explicitly to like give us a pass and make sure that it's never done specifically to us, which again, I want to reiterate that the reporting is that the ICC arrest warrants, if they come, which is a big if, the reporting is that they will likely be against Israeli officials and Hamas leaders.
Right.
So keep that in mind as this is all unfolding.
Well said.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.